Welcome, everybody. We're excited to get going here. We're going to be talking about all things AI. Forget the hype and let's get real. A couple logistical items, and then I want to get just a minute or two to have some of the stragglers get in. This is going to be an interview-style format. Want it to be interactive, but we're going to wait for the questions at the end. So make sure you find that Q&A box and type in any questions, and I promise I'll get to them at the end. This will be made available, so if you got to jump a little bit early, we'll make sure we get an email out to you and you could watch it. But I'm going to introduce someone here in just a second. But before I do, I'm going to play a quick video, and then we'll get going.
Hi, my name is Dave Elkington. I'm the CEO of InsideSales.com, and I want to share a little bit how we help our customers and our partners go through what we call an AI sales transformation. An AI sales transformation is about leveraging data and science and optimizing your process to help you sell more. And there's typically 4 phases in any AI sales transformation. You have a productivity phase that actually doesn't include any AI because you have to drive productivity and collect data to learn more how they engage. The second thing you do is you use predictive models then to identify who your buyers are, what their characteristics are, industry, geography, title levels, how they want to engage, things like that. The next thing you want to do is identify your optimal seller. So we're going to look at characteristics, tenure with the company, cycling of their pipe, their ability to produce new opportunities, and that'll allow us to then make very prescriptive recommendations on what they should do to generate more pipe and actually increase their close rate. The last thing is all about leveraging the data that goes through this journey. So if you notice, there's a y-axis and an x-axis. The y-axis is a progressive stepwise increase in the amount of data that we're leveraging in the predictive models. The x-axis is then leveraging that data increasingly to create more results. In this last phase, we've collected information about how they engage and how they react. We have data about the demographics, firmographic kind of behavioral data around your buyers, similar around your sellers. With this, then, we can actually go get custom data, your accounting data, HR data, inventory data, marketing data, whatever, and we can answer more questions than just who to sell to and how to engage with them. And this is the kind of journey that drives results like 10, 20, as much as 30% plus kind of revenue in this sort of transformation. Look, we'd love to partner with you. We'd love to see if there's a journey that can help you drive more revenue and be more effective in what you do. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. We're so excited that you're joining us today for InsideSales.com's webinar. We're going to be talking about AI for sales. Forget the hype. Let's get to the reality. And to do that, we brought in my friend and mentor, Dave Boyce, who happens to be currently the Chief Strategy Officer here at InsideSales.com. Dave, how you doing?
Doing great. Looking forward to this 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I mean, Dave's all things AI. He thinks it, he drinks it, he sleeps it. So we're going to be diving into that topic. But for a lot of the audience who may not know you, Dave, can you give us just a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do here at Inside Sales?
Sure. Well, Chief Strategy Officer, that means I think about kind of where is our future. I think about how we interact with the market, how we define the market, how we and how those things define our own growth strategy, our own product strategy, our own partnership strategy, sales strategy, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, someone's got to be thinking about that, right?
Well, I hope so. Yeah.
And you're the guy to do it. Well, I want to get in, and we got a really cool offer we're going to be throwing out to the audience at the end that your team has been developing. I think it'll be fun to get to. So make sure you stick around to the end. But let's dive right into AI. So obviously a buzzword. It's things that we're thinking about as sales leaders. But if you take a step back, why should sales leaders even be thinking about this topic of AI?
I'm glad you said buzzword, because buzzword is sort of like, for people like you and me who think about sales, it's like I have no use for buzzwords. Yeah. Like they don't actually help me. I mean, AI, from a hitting my number standpoint,
yeah.
What can AI do for me? I know that it can help me with my Netflix viewing patterns.
Right.
And I know that it can help me with, making suggestions of what I buy on Amazon. It can help me get from point A to point B using Waze, or, if I'm using Yelp or other things. Like, I know there's sort of like guided and assisted sort of applications of AI in my personal life. In sales, is it just a buzzword? Is that all it is? Is it just something that I can't actually grab a hold of? I think that's what we want to.
Well, and it feels that way because it does feel like you brought up some tangible results. I mean, I'm thinking, I've got my kids, I sit down, we watch Netflix, and it's suggesting and recommending.
Yeah.
And, it was just Christmas, and obviously, the recommendation engine was full and well on them. It feels so real and tangible, but in business, people are talking about it. Every company has some sort of AI now, don't they? I mean, you got to do AI. It's Einstein. If you don't do AI, you're not part of the trend. But I just don't know what it means.
So if we're successful today, what I'd love to do is talk directly to sales leaders and cut through all the hype. Just adding AI to the name of my product or the marketing slick, does not mean that that my product can actually help you sell more.
Yeah.
And if it can't help you sell more, then it is just hype.
And it doesn't actually matter.
I believe there's a really risk-free way to make AI work for you, the sales leader.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to outline today. Everything else is just hype.
Well, and this is the talk track. When Dave and I were talking about this, I said, it was almost the first time and where I thought it all kind of connected, right? Because being part of a company and a technology company and being in this AI space, when you walked me through the path that you're going to walk the audience through today, I finally kind of saw the full picture.
Yeah.
At times I felt like I've seen it and I've kind of been like, oh, I get it. But man, when you kind of see these four phases of this AI journey that kind of Dave will walk us through, it just takes you from beginning to end, makes it real. So let's dive in and just go phase by phase. Is that okay with you?
And let's make that I think that's our watchword. If it's real, we were successful.
Yeah.
If it feels like hype, then, we didn't get there.
Then you're not there. So let's dive right into phase one. So let's just talk about the what. What is phase one, or this kind of idea where people should start the journey of AI?
Yeah. So let's go back to the examples we were using in our personal lives and just kind of define what is AI. So then we'll know how we get kind of from, here to there in our business life. I have a really expansive view of what AI is. It's anything that uses computing power to understand the past and then guide me towards a version of the future that I want.
Yeah.
So in Netflix, it understands past viewing patterns and guides me towards something that I'm going to like in the future.
Right.
Amazon's the same. Google Waze is the same. In sales, is there something we can learn from the past? Can we use computing power to learn something from the past that will guide me towards the future? And
I'd like to, you said to the future that I want, results that are real.
Yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, is like closing deals.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
let's just cut to the chase. It's actually making money. It's not. But you're right. I mean, Amazon gets me a show that I want, or Netflix gives me a show I want. Amazon gets me something that I want. It's not just about giving me past to predict something in the future, but it's something.
So why couldn't I be predictive about viewing patterns in the past? It's because I didn't have enough data about the past. I didn't have data about who was renting what from Blockbuster and how those strung together against profiles. Like I didn't, when we rented videos,
right.
we didn't know anything about the past really.
Right.
Once we started connecting viewing patterns to individual profiles, we started to learn about the past, and then you can use that to predict the future. More of what works, less of what doesn't. So phase one in sales,
you have to have something data. You got to have something to look at.
Yeah. It's one thing to have people using the desk phone and an unconnected email and their cell phone. I may or may not know about all of that activity, but if I can get a sales rep to actually use a system that captures all of that activity with precision, then I start to know.
But that's the problem right now, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes in companies, like you said, right? I've got Outlook, and that's not really connected to my desk phone. Certainly not. My mobile phone's doing something else, and I'm thinking, text message, all these different communication channels. that is like Blockbuster. It's
Yeah.
just a bunch of people renting a video.
Right, exactly.
And it's good.
So just think about the notion of, yesterday I hung up the desk phone and all the data about that phone call just disappeared into the ether.
Yeah.
The only chance I had of the data about that phone getting captured is if the rep would swivel and say, 3:01 p.m. attempted phone call, Bonnie Johnson,
Which
no
happens
answer.
1% of the time.
Yeah, if that, especially if it's no answer. And AI wants to know which phone calls connected and which ones didn't.
Yeah.
It wants to know which ones lasted a long time and which ones lasted a short time, which ones in sequence resulted in a sale and which ones in sequence resulted in a not sale. Because then AI can sort of recommend more of what works and less of what doesn't.
Yeah.
So phase one is just instrumenting your sales team.
To start, you'd say, I mean, we're obviously talking about sales today.
Yeah.
It is just the basic applications of a sales process.
It is
the phone or
it is
some of those basic types of
yeah.
activities.
If you're going to use a phone that I get data off of. If you're going to use email that I get data off of. If you're going to use those two in concert, let's use a system that can track those two in concert. And so there are lots of sales productivity suites out there.
That's right. Yeah.
And the good news is sales productivity suites actually give you productivity.
Right.
So
you do get, there is an initial benefit from this phase one. It's not just
like, strap in and do what I tell you to, even though it's more painful. No, actually, there's hacks in these systems. Ours has them. Other sales productivity suites have them. You talk about them all the time, like pre-recorded voicemail. Oh, that's super easy. Like, hey, I got voicemail. Let me click a button. It'll leave a voicemail in my voice while I move on to the next call. That actually just saved me a bunch of time.
Schedule an email at a certain time.
Manage
my tasks a little bit better. The funny thing is, though, I think that's a different paradigm shift, right? Because when people, especially sales leaders, which I think we have a lot of them listening today, when they look at these tools, I think they always go for productivity. But what they don't realize is that really is just the first part of the journey. And that if you're doing it the right way, you're actually building up some real past data that could be potentially used more effectively. And if you don't go to that, you're going to a different place. I don't know if a lot of leaders think that way. They kind of just go, I need that immediate productivity. And look, 18 months in a role as a CRO, I got to hit my number.
Sure.
So I get why they're like, I need that quick bang, but it's like, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon sometimes, right?
The good news is you can have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, you get both.
Right. Like we can get 10% extra productivity out of a sales team by just doing those things like you talked about. Scheduled emails, templated emails, pre-recorded voicemails, local presence on the phone number. Like I will get more results out of my team by just giving them those tools. Then the question is, did I harvest all the data off the back end of that activity? If the answer is no, boy, like you just wasted a year worth of actual
such a missed
data.
opportunity.
Such a missed
Do
opportunity.
you feel like that maybe isn't, I mean, there is a problem in the market, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but people struggle using technology tools. I mean, sales reps often say, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Do you think that why isn't communicated enough? Like, guys, it's not just about productivity. It's about raising the overall awareness. And maybe that wouldn't help, but I'm thinking,
that's kind of where I am. I don't think the sales reps
care that much because it's about hitting their number.
Yeah, they just got to hit their number.
Interesting.
But there's kind of different flavors of sales reps too. Like, can you get an inside rep who spends, her whole day staring at a glass screen and making phone calls and sending emails to use tools that make her job easier? You probably can.
Right.
Can you get a field sales rep to make sure that every phone call that she places is through a certain application? No, you know what? I'm just going to use my cell phone.
That's probably true. That's probably true. Like, so in this phase one, I mean, where do you recommend to start? I mean, is this more for a certain type of group, or is it flow a little bit better with different?
If we're being real, and I'm being real, it works better with inside sales.
Yeah.
It just does. Because you have a chance of getting them to see tangible benefit by using a suite of tools that also give us the data we need for a future phase.
Wink, give us the data, as well.
Exactly.
In this phase, I mean, you've been doing this a long time, obviously a lot of customers. What's the typical lift, or kind of as we end up kind of bring to fruition this phase one, what's the lift you're typically seeing here?
Easy, like falling off a log 10%.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's more.
I love the cake and eat it too, right? It's like you're still getting this lift, But if you're smart, you're not just focusing on the lift, you're focusing on the next phase.
Yep.
That we're going to kind of.
Yeah, and we're going to get the real benefits are going to come in that next.
Well,
phase.
let's jump in there. So, do you have what do you typically call this phase one? Is just an introduction phase, or?
I call it sales productivity.
Yeah.
Parentheses, instrument your sales reps.
Instrument your sales
Yeah.
reps. Get them
Like,
going.
what we really want is the data, but what we're giving them to get them to use our system is
This is instrumentation.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that's phase one. Let's jump into phase two. What is it?
So now that we've got all that data, we know which phone calls were placed to which target companies, which target titles, which target geographies, at what time of day and what day of week, and which ones were answered.
All the same on email. We got all the email stuff.
Which
as well.
emails were sent, in which cadence, in which sequence,
To
which ones
who.
were open, to whom, like all that stuff. We know all that stuff. Well, now we start to optimize.
Yeah.
Right? Now we can ask the system, will you please recommend more of what works and less of what doesn't?
Yeah.
And
Guys, doesn't that just? I mean, that line right there,
Yeah.
like that. I mean, I remember the first time you told it to him, I'm like, yes. Like, why would you just have a productivity tool that keeps calling or keeps emailing? Wouldn't you want at some point not to just see every viewable show on Netflix? You just want to see the ones that you actually, like, or the ones that your wife and you will enjoy.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like that'd be a logical thing.
And it's a perfect job for AI. I mean, one way of thinking about AI is one category of AI is machine learning.
Yeah.
And machine learning is really just massive correlations, like parallel correlations. Which activities correlate with which outcomes, and there are, as you can imagine, just what we just talked about right just now. Let's say you're doing a 7-touch, cadence outreach strategy, 7-touch cadence, and it includes emails and phone calls, and they're in some sequence, and some are answered and some aren't, and some result in voicemail, and some result in live, and some get clicked on and some don't. Millions of permutations right there. There's no way that a human being or even a rules engine could make sense of that, but an AI is perfect for that. It can look at all of that.
But I'm a sales rep. I listen to that and I'm like, I don't like it, right? I'm the one who can, I can look through all the accounts and I know which ones are better. I know which people to call because that's why they pay me the big bucks.
Yep.
But we just got to move past that.
No,
right?
well, let's be sympathetic. I mean, we've all been sales reps, and we were all smarter than any system or any boss that we had.
I hit my number almost 50% of the time, Dave.
So I want to be sympathetic to that. And you used, for me, what's the most interesting AI user interface on the planet, or the one that I like the best, which is Netflix. There's a ton of AI going on in the background in Netflix. How many titles are in Netflix? Let's say like 4,000.
I actually, it's a writer. It was. I looked this up. It's
You
like
did.
almost 6,000, like
6,000.
5,800 or
Great.
something.
All right, 6,000 titles. How many do you see when you log in?
I looked this up as well. It's like 142.
Okay.
If you scroll down, you know how they have the different categories.
Yeah, and you got to page through them all and then go down to the
But
categories.
if you go, it's like 7 categories down. It's like 142,
Okay,
which
so-
comes out to be, that's like 2%.
Great. So if you wanted to see the 143rd title, what would you have to do?
You'd have to go search it.
Yeah.
You have to go search it.
Hey, we can do the same thing for reps. I mean, let's give them the stuff that's going to work
I mean,
and just lead them to water. And gosh, I can still make choices, right?
Yes.
Like in all the comedies that are recommended for me, I can either watch this one, or this one. But if I want to find the comedy that didn't make the cut, I got to go deep tracks, right?
Yeah.
And go search it. We do the same thing in terms of
that
recommending
analogy.
who to contact and how to contact them. We know a set of things that will work. Let's put that in front of the rep. Let them use their judgment within that sphere. And if they really, really, really are stubbornly, obstinately smarter, they can go deep tracks.
They can go search it.
Yeah.
But I mean, just to simplify it like that, I mean, you think of Netflix and it is, I still feel like I'm in control.
Yeah.
But really,
Of course you are.
I'm only seeing a certain portion of the titles. But the great thing is those titles, I think to your point, have been kind of run through the ringer.
Yeah.
And so they're my A accounts or they're my things that I'm most likely going to like. But man, there's still a lot to choose from in there. And I'm like, I'm flipping through them. So it's funny how well Netflix works with me, but controls yet empowers me to kind of enjoy my entertainment in a better experience.
So if we bring that back to sales and we put only things that work, and we make things that work really easy, and things that don't work we kind of hide a little bit. and then, but you still leave a lot of empowerment to the rep to kind of manage through her day, and that is another 20% bump.
20%. Yeah.
20% bump.
Yeah.
Just by steering them to the stuff that works and away from the stuff that doesn't work.
Yeah. What do you feel like? I mean, the concept of prioritization, I think, has been out there. You know, like look at stuff that is more likely to close.
Yeah.
How come it hasn't been as adopted? Is it something that we're just starting to get to now? I mean, I feel like people have been talking about it a little bit, but they've not been able to really see this benefit, I think, as much as people have wanted to.
Well, the only data that we've had to prioritize in sales to date has been which accounts closed and which accounts didn't close.
Yeah.
And then we can go do a lookalike strategy.
That's
like,
exactly right.
Accounts like this, let's recommend. Accounts like that, let's not recommend.
Yep, makes sense.
But we've never known, because we haven't had the data, which people in those accounts
are engaging with us or talking to us.
Or have influence.
Yeah.
Right? So there's, and I don't call an account, I call a person.
Yeah.
So yes, I want to know if the account has a chance, but I also want to know which people in the account will get me towards that deal.
And that's taking it to a level that is just where I don't close accounts, I close individuals.
Yeah.
And so that's maybe working with a workflow that it's finally getting to a place where it's working with me rather than just, okay, this account's better than that, but now it's this contact and how do I engage with this contact, et cetera. Takes it to a whole nother level.
Yep. And you can imagine, if I wanted to be smarter than the system, I could say, yeah, of course Kimberly Clark would be great. Of course they would be great. But how the heck am I going to get started with Kimberly Clark?
Right.
Or I know something about Kimberly Clark that the system doesn't know. I know something about the sponsor there that the system doesn't know. So I'm going to ignore that for now, and I'm going to go with the ones that I know. Well, this actually gets to another level. It's people. It's engagement with people.
Yeah.
It's phone numbers and emails that actually get answered. It's times of day that actually get responses. It's cadences and sequences that actually...
So it's like, it's getting to things that I'm doing.
I never had the data before, right?
So you said about a 20% lift. If you really maximize this phase, and this phase is kind of defined or called what? This phase kind of 2.
So I call this optimizing your opportunities.
Yeah. So
optimizing.
Number 1, you think about instrumenting your salespeople, getting them productive.
Yeah.
And then it's about this kind of opportunity optimization.
Exactly.
And you get a little deeper into the data that you've been gathering in phase 1.
Yep.
Got it.
That's it.
All right, that's phase 1. That's phase 2.
Yep.
Jumping into phase 3. I mean, sounds like we've got kind of, you're almost following the sales process here a little bit. I've got kind of how I start to reach out, and now I'm really starting to close my deals and work a little bit better.
Okay.
Now where do I go?
Well, now I'm going to back up.
Don't go forward anymore.
Yeah, just go all the way back. No, it's and from a sales leader standpoint, this is interesting too, because it's one thing to be able to kind of hit my number and then hit my number again and then hit my number again. I can do that by sheer grit and luck. It's another thing to take a step back and say, do I actually have a machine, meaning a sales team, that's set up to win over and over again? So phase 3 is taking a step back and looking at which reps are doing which things that lead to success, and do I have enough of them?
Interesting. So we switch it from looking at the opportunity, quote unquote, now to the seller.
Yes.
We're looking at kind of.
And I've got a lot of data on them now, right? Because I know who's making phone calls, I know who's advancing things through the pipeline, I know who's sending emails, I know who's being effective, I know who's not being effective. So now we ask the artificial intelligence engine to just flip the unit of analysis from the opportunity to the rep, and then kind of scatter plot out for me
what's going on,
which
basically.
reps are good at what, and do I have them in the right seats, and do I actually have a machine that can produce? And by the way, you will always see stuff you don't want to see in that analysis.
Yeah,
it's fine. I'll get some reps from bottom left to top right. I'll get some from bottom right to top right. I'll get some from bottom left to out.
That's right.
To a different role. Out. Yeah. But I want to make sure I can tune that machine so that I can rest a little easier knowing that I've got the right people in the right seats that can reliably.
Yeah, it's funny. I came from a little bit of an HR world. I was at Gallup for a while. And,
that's right.
They loved the 4-box model,
yep.
Like a leadership profile,
yep.
and they'd kind of pinpoint you in it. And a lot of it was pretty subjective, though. I mean, it was kind of like, based on a manager's review of somebody
Yep.
or something like that. But what I'm hearing you say is we're taking all those data points from what they're doing, and we're using data to actually somehow plot them in this category, which is just a completely different kind of view than I think most people are seeing when they kind of look at their people. Do you feel like when you look at you've probably seen a few of these, do you see the 80-20 rule kind of happening? I mean, is it true that or is it just that people are in different kind of buckets, or is it?
Well, the intuition is, you've gotten it right when you ask a dispassionate machine to evaluate your team.
Yeah.
And
I mean, now I'm like, I want to see some of these teams. Like, are they?
Yeah.
And where are they coming out?
Yeah.
Are people typically on top? They have killer sales reps, or are they struggling, or?
Yeah. Well, you've gotten it right when a dispassionate machine puts something in front that's all data driven in front of the sales leader, and the sales leader's like, I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it. He's been getting away with that forever. I've never had the data to show it. Like, I knew that.
And that's good. I think you told me once, like, good AI actually does match intuition. It doesn't go against it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in terms of an 80-20 rule, does it match 80% of the time? I would say, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little more, but it's not ever going to be perfect. There's always going to be a reason why so-and-so is there. It's like, oh, yeah, they were on medical leave.
Sure,
I understand that. Like, let me
feeds
ignore that
into
for
it
now.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's some, on some of the other phases you've talked a little bit about, even clicked into the tactics. I mean, what are some of the data points that you've found that maybe just feed when you're actually looking at these sellers in a more data-driven way? Is there certain things that you're always looking at, or?
Well, there's two things that we always look at. We run it through a clustering algorithm, and we let the machine tell us what's important. But almost always there are two dimensions that are super easy to engage on. One is, can this person build pipeline?
Yeah, which
and
is fundamental to sales, right? I mean, that's pretty.
Right.
That's a good one.
And it's a function of the stuff we talked about before. Like, are they
engaging with people? Are they doing the activities? Probably. Are they getting it done?
Yeah. And, so if they're not building pipeline, can we then go to their activities, and we can probably diagnose and probably coach and figure out how to get them there.
Interesting.
The second one is, can they close pipeline?
Yeah.
That's probably a softer skill. Like, you can build it, but you can't close it. Maybe you're good at the activities, but you're not good at the art part.
Yeah.
There's probably some coaching that you can do around that as well.
But there's some stuff, right? I mean, do you have the right people in the deal, the buying group?
Yeah,
you're only talking with one person, or the opportunity's never moving forward. Probably still some engagement stuff. Are you interacting?
Absolutely.
All these types of things would feed that kind of close, and then you've got the pipeline.
Absolutely. There are...
That's great. Those are the fundamentals of, say, are you building it, or are you closing it?
Right.
You building it, or you closing it?
So
but no one thinks of the inputs. That's cool.
Yeah, so there's no one thinks of the inputs. You're right on the closing thing.
There's some data points.
There are data points. Do I have the right people on the deal? Am I pursuing the right type of deal at the right price? Does this fit the profile of a deal that would normally close? Am I over-resourcing a deal that will never close? That would be bad.
Yeah.
Am I under-resourcing a deal that actually has all the characteristics of a deal that should close?
We can get some of that data, because man, the problem, right, is if I'm a sales leader, again, we got to think a handful on today. I'm just looking at my forecast or I'm looking sometimes at my quarter end. I'm like, dang it, didn't hit our number again, but I don't know if I can correctly prescribe or predict why I'm here.
Yeah.
I know that I'm only at 50% attainment, but I don't know, like, the inputs to get in. Some of the, I know inherently, intuitively, some of the stuff you're talking about, but I could never figure it out deal by deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, especially you're running 100 people,
200.
500 people, 1,000 people, multiple geographies. When I've talked to sales leaders in the past, they're like, "Oh yeah, that was Mike's forecast. Cut that by 50%." oh yeah, that was John's forecast. It's probably going to come in a little higher than that.
Yeah, it's like manager. But manager's like,
Discretion,
I cut it in half.
Yeah,
happens all the time.
So this takes the passion out of that and takes the subjectivity out of that and just looks at, this is where we are using a lookalike analysis.
Yeah.
Which types of deals with which, but it goes a level deeper, with which characteristics, great, of the account, and which contacts are attached to that deal, and what communication pattern with those contacts has happened over time. are likely to close.
Yeah,
And if any of that is going wrong, like, hey, you were sending emails every day and getting responses from the VP of HR.
Right.
It's been 2 weeks since you've gotten a response. Like, that's a bad thing. The sales leader wouldn't know it because the sales rep is saying, oh, yeah, everything's on track, you know.
Happy years, right?
Yeah, but the machine would know it.
Right.
And the machine would know whether that's relevant. Maybe I don't care that I'm not getting it anymore because now it's in a purchasing cycle and it's really just about purchasing.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, you mentioned that it takes the subjectivity out of it, but it almost empowers, I think, more subjectivity because for once we're not starting with subjectivity. We've got a full data set we can look at. Now we can add more subjectivity, and that it's like bringing the art and science together.
I didn't think of that.
It's a pretty cool way to, I think, bring in, because then now I can actually say, you know, this is what's going on, whereas before, you know, we're always starting.
Yeah, you got a sales leader with tons of intuition, wanting to apply the intuition, but they just can't even see the raw data.
They can't get there.
So it's all like spreadsheets and columns and rows, and then I never get to the intuition. That's such a good insight.
So many.
Now we're going to give you we're going to take a point of view and let you apply subjectivity.
Now you can apply the subjectivity. So this phase, from a results standpoint, I mean, you've obviously
another 20%.
So you're just
another
slowly
20%.
kind of tacking.
And these are cumulative, by the way. So plus 10, plus 20, plus 20.
And when we're talking about it, I mean, are we just talking about activity metrics? When we say lift,
no,
we're talking about
revenue.
some real
closed deals,
real dollars and cents here.
Closed deals in dollars and cents.
Wow.
Yep. So you got a 1,000-person team. They were closing X amount. Now they're closing X point 20, X point 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you what's this phase called? This would be number 3.
This is optimize your sellers.
So we go from kind of the buyers looking at who's buying from us.
Yep.
Now we're on to our sellers.
Correct. Yeah.
So you got phases 1, 2, and 3, and again, we're getting our people. We're trying to get the instruments in. We're starting to use the data, focus on the opportunities, understand our buyers.
Yep.
Then we double back and kind of hit our sellers. Sounds like we're almost done. I mean, are we done? That seems like you've almost got it.
Everything, all good things come in 3s, but we do have a 4.
You should get 3 or 5. You know that.
Yeah. The 4 is a catch-all. 4 is like, and I think 4 is the reason why people like you and I and sales leaders, you know, people like you, sometimes are skeptical of what AI can do because everyone, you know,
they go here first sometimes.
Yeah, it's like,
right?
hey,
it can solve all the world's
solve the world's problems.
Leap all buildings in one bound.
Yeah. So 4 is really like, now what else? Like, what else can I answer? Now that I know everything about how my buyers buy and everything about how my sellers sell, what other questions could I answer? And that may require a little bit more customer approach. Both of those two, they're software out of the box, wire it up, you know, plug it in, look at the diagnostics, and, you know, let the system start guiding your activities towards these 10, 20,
now we're
and
starting
20%
to pull
results.
from different shelves. Now you're starting to think,
Yeah,
okay,
so think
I may
about,
need a little bit of that. I might need a little bit of...
So let's say I've got phase 1, 2, and 3 all done.
Yeah.
And now I want to know which of my current customers is a flight risk, an attrition risk. Well, all the data to predict that might not be resident in CRM.
Yeah.
It might be
like
how timely are they paying their bills.
Yeah.
It might be how many trouble tickets have they filed. It might be how much are they using my product. Those pieces of data live in various systems. Can AI answer the question, who is 1 foot out the door? Absolutely. But I may need to get visibility to some more data sources. So now I start to use the same philosophy that took me through phases 2 and 3, apply it to a different question, and I pull together some different data sources.
Yeah, but I like how you kind of went to, because it sounds like, to your point, this could be a little bit of a catch-all, meaning we could, you know, we could start to tackle some real big challenges, big questions. But you went to kind of the, now that I've helped you close a deal and I've optimized so that your reps are closing more, let's make sure that we keep those customers.
Sure.
So that's a more natural place to maybe start as far as the guidance, attrition, upsell, that type of area. Is that where you'd go? Or?
And upsell's another one. Like, who's ready to buy more? And if they're going to buy more, is it more of what they already own, or is it a new thing?
Yeah.
Like, data and patterns exist around that. I may need to pull them in from various sources.
Same stuff you said. Maybe how much they're using my product, or again how fast they're paying. Again, I can see how fast that would come into upsell.
And we've seen, by the way, really big results out of that.
Really.
But
Any examples you can share or interesting stories? Because I know you've kind of tried to tackle some with the team some pretty, just big questions from big things.
Yeah, I'll give you some generic examples and some specific examples. And this one's public.
Yeah, sure.
Caesars Entertainment, right? VIPs.
Yeah.
It's one thing to get them to show up at my property, but that's not how I make my money.
Yeah.
I make money when they actually spend.
Yeah.
So it's not like who can I get to show up. It's which individual, when they show up, will actually spend money. So that's an optimization problem that requires more than just getting them to sign on the dotted line.
Right.
To show up at the property.
It's basically kind of an upsell.
Yeah, it's like kind of who's going to spend once they show. We worked with another customer. This isn't public. Utility computing.
Yeah.
Hey, I can get you to sign up.
Yeah.
But then, are you actually going to use and expand your usage of my hosting facilities? If so, then that's a really good pursuit. If not, it might actually be an unprofitable pursuit, even though I counted it as a closed-won deal.
Initially, but in the long run, right, it might actually cost me.
So there's lots of stuff like that we can do, and it's plus 30% benefit now.
Because you're going to potentially you're going into some pretty meaty stuff.
This is actual net revenue, right? Stuff.
If you can get that deep. Yep. So this is phase 4, and again, it sounds like it's a catch-all. You'd call this what? The
custom AI.
This is kind of just where you use it for the particular problems that are challenges facing your business.
And I get pitched all the time on, people. They don't pitch me as a customer, but they pitch me like their startup or their company, like our AI can do everything. It's like, okay, that's fine.
Well, this is probably why we're running into some of the problems. Is they're pitching phase 4, they're starting with phase 4, and it's a little vaguer because it's starting with just big challenges, and it doesn't have kind of that nice linear approach.
Yeah, theoretically, with enough data, AI can
solve anything.
But for sales leaders, give me a place I can start where I'll get a positive ROI phase 1, positive ROI phase 2, positive ROI phase 3.
Right.
Now I've become familiar with the concepts and I've actually seen the benefits. Now let's talk about custom.
Yeah, and it does. The nice thing is it actually, I don't want to say dip your toes, but it kind of, starting with like productivity. I mean, we got to have that. I mean, that's what leaders have. So don't be afraid. You can start there and then inch your way into it rather than feeling like AI, I got to use it to solve some big challenge. Yeah. Do you feel like this 4-phase process is easy? I mean, again, a lot of leaders want to think about AI, I think like they should be using it, maybe sometimes not knowing how to use it. Is this an easy lift? Is it? Can you just plug and play and let the machine take over? Or does each phase expect some work as you go through this? Or how would you coach people to think about their part in it?
Well, I can tell you that it's easy to justify. Yeah. And the good news is
because the results are obviously coming. Yeah.
And they're bite-sized. Like here's bite-sized effort for outsized returns. Here's the next bite-sized effort for outsized returns.
Which makes a big difference. If you can justify it, that's going to make a big difference.
Is it zero effort? No, it's not zero effort. Like, getting someone to go from how they used to call an email to this new guided way of calling and emailing, that's going to take some change management.
Yeah.
But they're going to see the benefits. They're going to actually reference to their peers how they saw the benefits.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have wind in your sails.
Right.
Now I can go to phase 2.
Man, guided selling, you might want to get that one for your book title. Well, I really appreciate you joining, Dave. I want to ask one more question because we've got you. I mean, you dabble in this. I mean, the customer experience and the conversations with some of the people I know you've been engaging with. I mean, sales leaders who've been doing it for years and years, who are running 1,000, person plus sales team, trying to solve some of their biggest challenges. You talk to them, you deal with this stuff. As you look forward, we've obviously got the 4 phases, but as AI continues to shape the way we sell in a guided selling motion, where does it go next? Do you see it? How does it continue to affect the sales and marketing process? Any quick thoughts on that?
Well, I'm super lucky in my job. I get to talk to people who are, shaping the future.
Totally,
so,
absolutely.
People like Mark Warrenberg, who's on the MIT Technology Council, thinking about
guys everywhere,
eras of computing. Big thoughts. I'm on the board of Forrester Research.
Congratulations, that was in the last year.
That's fairly new, and obviously Forrester is looking at what are the next waves of innovation. And I can tell you that I believe that AI is a next wave of computing.
Yeah.
Hardware, and then software,
Yeah.
and then cloud, and then the next is intelligence.
Yeah.
Intelligence runs on data,
Yeah.
and data is collected and organized, obviously, by all the underlying layers of the stack,
Things that happen,
the
yeah.
software,
So you have to have
the
those
cloud,
two.
the software. Yeah, you have to have them. Now that we have them, we can instrument and collect data. Okay, so great. We did that around who to engage and how to engage them. That's what we talked about in phases 2 and 3.
Right.
We talked about retention and cross-sell and upsell as being custom. They're not going to be custom forever.
Yeah. Right.
We're going to collect enough data.
That is. Even as I hear you say that, I'm like, that is pretty standard. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not there. We're not think. A lot of people aren't thinking about that, but that, of course, that's going to be standard.
Someone will figure out how to organize that data
Right.
and put together a corpus of data and a way of thinking about it, and an algorithmic approach to prediction, and then all of a sudden those are going to, be straight up software approaches.
And I assume then you'll just keep taking different parts of the sales process. So
Yeah, it's just a progressive wave of once you have enough data, well enough behaved for that question, then you can standardize your approach.
interesting.
Yeah.
So we could attack hiring. We were talking pre-show a little bit about getting deeper in hiring,
Right.
coaching, or I mean,
Yep.
you could. The
Anywhere
sky's
you
the
can
limit
get the data,
almost.
yeah.
Interesting. AI, there it is. Appreciate you taking
It's
the
really
time.
interesting. I would say, for a sales leader, why do I get involved in AI
Yeah.
right now? There's 2 reasons. One, you can actually create some separation between you and your competitors
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Because if your competitors aren't using it and you are, and you can get that 10% and 20%,
That makes a lot
well
more sense,
understood, great. Now you're creating separation. Second, there aren't a lot of sales professionals who have a lot of experience with AI.
Yeah.
Personally, I would want to be part of the group that does, not the part that
Be on
doesn't.
the cutting edge. You want to get moving.
Yeah,
Right?
because that puts you in a really elite group of people who
Jumping on
know where the future is.
Right,
Yeah,
kind of getting ahead
exactly.
of the game. Well, again, really appreciate you jumping on board. Appreciate kind of the closing comments there. For those people who want to take the next step with AI, I know your team's been working on something kind of special. And, unfortunately, it's a limited capability. We can't do it for everybody, but we would love for you to apply and kind of go through the motion. It's a really cool process that Dave and his team have come up with. It's called a neural scan. And I thought maybe you could just take a minute. You'll see it here on the screen. On the right of your screen, you'll be able to click it and kind of sign up, and Dave's team will call you and talk you through kind of what we do a little bit. But a quick overview on what that is and kind of how that is we've heard the 4 steps. We're kind of figuring out, okay, now how do I take that tangible next step?
Yeah.
A neural scan's an interesting way to maybe do that. What is it?
Super easy. Because this is all software based, all we have to do is connect a product that we have called NeuralView to your CRM,
Okay.
grab a set of data, run it through the engine, and then essentially show you in your own data where the opportunities are for prioritization and uplift.
Interesting.
So
So some of the findings or key takeaways would be what, for example, like
So what amount of, of all the leads or all the opportunities or all the accounts that you're managing, which ones have high propensity, which ones have low propensity? Same thing with contacts.
got it.
And then what would the benefit be of taking the
Actually changing.
of changing the way you approach them?
Cool.
Aligning all of your effort to the, not all of it, but shifting your effort to be towards the head of the tail versus the long tail of the non-closers.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
So you could actually kind of see, that's great. So using your data, you could see the benefits of potentially
exactly.
an AI.
And if the answer is, you're already fully optimized, great, then there's nothing to do. But if the answer is, no, I know that I can optimize better, this becomes the ammunition to go get started.
Got it. Well, there you have it. It's called Neural Scan.
Neural Scan.
It is limited, so please do grab it, check it out. Again, Dave and team will be reaching out to you to kind of follow up as a next step. So that's it for us. Again, Dave, thanks so much for joining. AI in sales. Forget the hype and get real.
Thanks, brother.
Take care, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'm excited to have done that with Dave Boyce. I'm going to let him kind of jump into his next session here, and I'm just going to answer some questions to see if we can't kind of get into really the specifics of this AI. And God, there were some great questions today. So let me see if we can kind of dive into some of those right now. Let's go to the bottom of this list and see where we are. So April starts and says, what percentage of your clients are doing B2B enterprise sales, sales to large groups of buyers? Is that success rate or lift different? What does that lift look like? Now, the quick answer to that is April. God, there's some great questions, you guys. I can't wait to get into this. So when you look at our database, we actually do have slightly more people who sell to smaller companies than who sell to larger companies. What you were looking at was an aggregate of it all, right? So that's kind of where that lift was coming from, that 10% or that 20%. So as far as the differentiation, do you see a bigger lift in kind of people who are selling to small or people who are selling to large? The truth of it is no. When it comes down to AI, it comes down to transactions. We're going to talk about that in a minute. You do need more data. If you're just closing one deal a year, you're not going to get very far down that path. So that's kind of a quick answer on that, April. Let me see if I can jump into question number 2 here. This is from Namir. Namir, can you address how you know what works or doesn't work for prioritization? In other words, what helps figure out how to have better spend their time? Is it just about what time of day, etc.? This is an interesting one to kind of understand, what's really making up the data to play into the prioritization engine. And I'm just going to throw out a couple things. So, because think of it, Namir, around like the account and the contact. And you want both of those because you want to know from an engagement standpoint. Let's just go in calls and emails for a minute. So call times or call durations or call results or the number or potentially even some of the recording data from phone calls and how that interacts. Then add on that from an email standpoint, email address, what they're doing with your email, downloading it, forwarding it, some of the interactions, email times. Those would be some of the stuff that the contact is doing. On top of that, then you want to add whatever you can around the account. What's going on with the account? Certainly title, level, demographic, firmographic. Is the company growing? What's going on with the company? Those are some of the things that fall into which people I should be actually going after, and then add on the engagement type of stuff really kind of gets you that second mile. So I like to think of it in those two categories as you move through that. Another question coming from Mike. How do you build a unified view? He says here, silos of data of email, social, mobile, et cetera, of customers and prospects. I mean, we highlighted this, Dave and I, as kind of a key point to start to look at this more holistically. I think a lot of companies, again, they can't get into the AI path because they've got their phone, they're using their mobile phone or a desk phone, and they've got Outlook on email, they've got LinkedIn on social, and the three never come together as an example. So I think the first part, Mike, is kind of like we talked, you've got to instrument your team because you're never going to get a unified view if you don't have a system or a technology that does actually bring those start to bring some of those pieces together. And the truth of the matter is, crawl, walk, run here. Don't think you're going to probably get everything in the you're not going to get everything you want. Probably see if you can start to get some of the basics and then add on from there. So number one, you actually got to start capturing it. Once you capture it, it becomes fairly easy. And there's some technologies like InsideSales.com to start thinking through that. But number one, you got to instrument them. And then number two, the reports come out fairly easily. Guys, keep bringing the questions. This is fantastic. And we got 20 more. We might have to stop. I may have to write like an ebook on these questions. Let's keep going. So Bill's coming from Journey says, oh, Bill's going for the tough one. And how does inside sales AI align or not align with Salesforce Einstein? Guys, this is one of the things Dave Boyce mentioned at the beginning. Everybody is talking about AI, and you're going to hear it more and more. And that's the thing we got to get to. That's why I love this path, number one, and I love real results coming from AI. The thing that Salesforce Einstein is kind of specializing in at the moment is around the lead prioritization and the lead scoring. Now we're going to go into a couple different areas. So first and foremost, we're looking at AI both on the lead or in the prospecting area around prioritization, but then we're going to double down on prioritization and kind of AI in the pipeline area and in the forecasting area to get that full funnel. So that's one difference at the moment, is that theirs is more focused kind of on the prospecting side of things. The second thing is how it's actually delivering the prioritization model. And when guys, look, again, we can all say we have AI, we can all say we have algorithms. The thing that makes AI different in sales is data. Data is the new currency. So when an AI model goes through your system, it's going to say, hey, I'm going to look at, again, the title of this company. I'm going to look at the account and how big this is. And AI and Salesforce and InsideSales.com, we share some of those similar characteristics. Where we differ in that we both provide kind of a prioritization engine is this idea of cross-company data. And it's kind of the sweet sauce of inside sales. And there's a couple other questions about it. In B2B sales, I wish this was different. I wish my enterprise team closed thousands and thousands of $1 million deals every year, but unfortunately they don't. Bless their hearts, they try, but they get sometimes double digits, but it's not quite there. That's not big data though, you guys. And so if you're only leaning on your data in a B2B space, you're going to lose out. Your engine doesn't have enough fuel, and so we provide what we call cross-company data. That's where, think of it as like pooling data. Think of it like Amazon. When you buy something at Amazon, that recommendation engine uses your history, but it also uses the attributes and behaviors of others that are like you. That's what our cross-company data says. It says, I get that this is what you're doing, but what are similar companies in the InsideSales.com data set experiencing? And that is, Bill, some of the places where we align and some of the places where we differentiate. That was a long one, Bill. Sorry about that. Okay, let's keep going. Ava, how does AI, I'm just winging it here. How does AI know if you're over-resourcing a deal that will never close? Some of you are going into the pipeline AI, and I think this is newer for some of you, so it is worth it to kind of go in probably and kind of just think through this for a minute. It's interesting to see the anatomy of what makes up a great deal. And I'm seeing another question like, how do you know what is a good deal and what is a bad deal? When we think specifically of this question, how does AI know if you're over-resourcing a deal that will never close? Think about, as I'm a sales rep and I'm working an opportunity, and what makes that opportunity good or bad. Let me just give one tactical example, right? So I fall in love with the deal as a sales rep. And over maybe a 6-month period, that deal, that opportunity starts to move from stage to stage. Now, I put that in a forecast that it is 90% closed. But what AI can do, in very simplest terms, it can see that deal has been moved from stage to stage fairly frequently. And when deals like that do it, they move a lot, and it's got this type of DNA, this many decision makers associated with the account. It's been in my pipe this long. It has this many employees. We know that it doesn't close at a 90%. It closes at a 60%. And that would be one tactical way, Ava, that you'd see, hey, this deal, I think it's good, and I'm spending time on it, and I think it's a 90%, so I'm actually focusing there. But truthfully, based on the data, you actually have a 60% chance to do it. So you are over-resourcing or spending too much time on it. Back to Namir, another question from Namir here. Can you talk about the characteristics that really make a difference in looking at deals? Oh, I'm glad. That's a great next question, a follow-up. This is slightly different every time we look at it, but there is, now that we've done it a lot of times, there are some things that we're seeing that are, really starting to pop out. So one that has been very interesting is commit accuracy. That's, again, I'm looking at, for us to be able to close more deals, what are the inputs on a deal or an association with the deal that drive more results? Commit accuracy, you guys, a lot of people probably want to scratch in your head. What do you mean by commit accuracy? Well, as we've looked at this, your ability, like the word says, I guess, to accurately forecast your data, which is where a lot of people fall apart, is a big influencer, obviously, in the results that you have. Again, maybe a little bit obvious, but surprising in the data to see that it does back it. Number of accounts that I'm currently managing, average sales cycle, days in current stage, my ability, number of deals won and lost, total activities against the deal. Again, from a rep perspective, the quarters that I've actually kept a 75 attainment or above, how well I'm able to build my pipeline. I mean, again, Namir, the list goes on, but those are some of the types of things, how the deal is moving from stage to stage. Those are some of the things you're seeing as far as deal AI and how we use it to see if we can't support reps and moving to the next stage. Where's this going? Yeah, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer all these, you guys. I got another 15. Maybe we should have broken that up during this session and answered some of these. Let's keep going, though. I'm just going chronological order here. And if I don't get to your question, guys, I promise I'll try to follow up after and see if we can't get there, because these are, you can tell this is a great topic. I mean, we've got probably 45 questions in here, and they're not, hey, how do I make a phone call with a piece of technology? Or what is the best sales cadence? I mean, these are tough questions that I think people are obviously starting to really wrestle with as they think about getting the competitive advantage that companies need to win. Okay, Eddie is saying, how does all the information get into the system? So that's really phase one, and that's why I like the path that we've laid out, Eddie. It's just this idea to say, hey, you got to instrument your people first. And if I'm instrumenting them, again, I'm going to go to a B2C example like Dave and I were just talking about. So how does Netflix, how does Amazon get all the data into the system? Well, you have to use it. That's it. You got to buy stuff on Amazon. You got to have your people in a platform, making phone calls, sending emails, moving deals, changing lead statuses, updating this, all of that begins to kind of assemble, and the rep doesn't know it because they're getting some productivity gains, but in the background, as we were talking about, you're getting the data gains. The problem is I have long-winded answers. If I did this faster, I think we'd probably be able to get through all these. Joanne here. Some great B2B examples which have multiple data points, but what about B2B with fewer data points? Boom. I mean, guys, this is it. And if you don't catch anything else I've said today, go with Joanne's question here. AI will not work in enterprise B2B sales unless you have cross-company or crowdsourced data. There's just not enough. Again, my sales team, they're not closing millions and millions of transactions every day. They're closing a couple a quarter. Add that up, 20. That's not enough. And so, Joanne, the answer to it is you've got to go cross company, and that's where we're going. That's where Amazon went. That's where Netflix went. B2B's got to follow, because I think it just adds a lot of that richness. Great. Mehmet. Let's hit him. What are some of the future sales jobs that utilize AI? Yeah, interesting. So the thing that's happening right now that is very real is, again, think of AI hopefully more as a support tool than a replacement. I love the Iron Man analogy, right? You never want to replace, you always want to enable. Think of the person in the suit becoming, hey, he's a regular person, he puts on the suit, he becomes a Superman, he becomes a super salesperson. So that is where we want to go, but where you're seeing it inch mostly is in, number one, you're seeing it in the space of lead prospecting. Specifically in the inbound motion, there's some real interesting things going on there where as new leads come in, can AI support the qualification process more effectively? Again, can it prioritize it more effectively? So those lead response reps are kind of the initial, and they're a little more transactional often, and that's where AI can come in and really play a larger support. But it goes throughout the entire pipeline, and that's what I think we were trying to get across today. Certainly in the prospecting avenue, if I'm going targeted outbound campaigns, do I know which method is most likely to engage a prospect? Guys, there's 6 of them. Phone calls, voicemails, emails, social, text messages, direct mail. I mean, which one are you using? Are you falling in love and just being a social seller? Are you just being a cold caller? What does the data say, right? What is going to interact best with your prospect? So that's where AI can help there. And then as we were talking about just a minute ago in pipeline, I mean, how do we know the anatomy of a deal and what our actual forecast could be? Can we get smarter in that? Can AI engage or kind of recommend next steps to us like, hey, maybe you should be thinking about this in the anatomy of the deal? So then I think the answer is it's going to start at the bottom, or the top of the funnel, I guess, is probably the better way to go about it. And it's going to start in the more transactional areas because they're closer to B2C. And then it's going to slowly work its way down the pipeline, and it's going to get more into the transformational or relational side of the business. How many more questions do I have here? I got about 10 more. I'm probably not going to get to those, you guys. Oh, Joanne, did Joanne write that? What did she say here? How much data is needed for the neural scan to be effective? That is a good one. I mean, guys, more data is typically going to be better, and this is one of the things we wanted to be careful of, right? If you apply to have the neural scan, and again, you've got one sales rep and you're closing a deal a year or something, it's not going to work. We typically like to have encompassed over 100,000 transactions, and again, that can be over multiple years. It can be those don't all have to close, by the way. Those could be lost. Those could be lost one, some sort of interaction like that's a great place to start. And usually to get there quickly, you've got a dozen or 2 dozen sales reps to get there, in a year or 2 year process. We can work with you to port that over and kind of run the scan. So that's, Joanne, kind of a nice place to start, but you can reach out to me directly if you want to go a little bit deeper into that. Last one, guys, I'm going to get to. We're already over, but there was such good questions. This was a paragraph. Assume good buyer data history. Are some companies using AI today to act on individual buyer engagement and value preference for future upsell sales? In addition, assume good buyer data history. Okay. Are some companies using AI to act on individual buyer engagement and value preferences for future? Yeah, this is, I think, a little more, we were hitting this at the end kind of as the custom AI mic, and this is a little more cutting edge, I think. Again, AI at the moment is focusing, it's diving into the marketing, it's moving into sales, and it's starting to work its way down the pipeline. But think about even from a technological standpoint, customer success in the post-sales process is a little bit barren. There's a whole frontier of companies, I think, kind of emerging that are diving into this customer success space. So absolutely, and I know of a couple that I've been out to, and Dave Boyce alluded to some of them, where they're doing exactly that. You got good buyer history. They're looking at different attributes, and they're trying to figure out what's the best next cross-sell or upsell product and who's most likely to do it. So it's happening, but you're going to see that it's few and far between. And then he says, in addition to one company's experience, are you aware or foresee multiple companies teaming up to new aggregators of data portraying each unique buyer experience, preference, and probability to buy? If I'm understanding that, I think he's kind of going towards a little bit of that cross-company concept, right? And if you are, Mike, then 110% yes on that. Because, again, if I buy on Amazon, it's very powerful to know my history. but it's even more powerful to know what people like me are doing, what people like me have purchased and recommend. And with that, I think that's where the power is going to come into B2B. And the people who nail that, again, we can all get phone call data. Yeah, I mean, anybody can do that, but not everybody can get kind of this team data, as you say. So I think that's going to be the cherry on top that makes the difference in the data space of the new currency of AI. Guys, a couple more, but I'm 5 minutes over. I was having such a fun time. Half the people, it looks like some people certainly dropped off, but I love it. I'll be offended if you don't grab me on LinkedIn. You know I want to continue the conversation. We're getting passionate about AI because we want to go real. Let's get real with AI, real results, real people. Have a fantastic day. Thanks, everybody.